Election 2020 across America. Good evening, I'm Dave Morris from the Oklahoman's newsroom. The polls have closed here in the state as we are after 7 p.m. now. Oklahoma among those states in the country participating in Super Tuesday. 14 states went to the polls today, including Americans abroad and the territory of Samoa, I believe, also casting votes. Democrats and Republicans for the upcoming presidential election in November. Two other items were also on the ballot locally here in Oklahoma City. Joining me to discuss these are my colleagues, Chris Casteel and Kayla Branch. Guys, thanks for your time and welcome into the studio.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Chris, we'll start with you. Perhaps that's the big story of today's Super Tuesday. 14 states, Samoa, and as you mentioned, Americans abroad, all casting votes today. Republicans, Democrats, start with the Democrats because it is a big day for them.
It is, and it's going to be just super interesting, I think. No pun intended on that super part. Not only how Oklahoma goes, but how all of these states go. You know, I think there's so many delegates at stake, and there's some candidates who, like Bloomberg, you know, who really want to win a state, and he's focused in part on here in Tennessee and some other
Visited here 3 times?
3 times. And others like Sanders who are more interested in making it a delegate race at this point, and it looks like he's in position to capture the big prize of the night, which is California. But you know, then you've got former Vice President Joe Biden, who never came here, didn't start even doing TV time here until I think Friday or Saturday. Dispatched his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, to the state today. Made a last-minute effort here, but still can wind up winning it. It's very fluid. You know, you've had a couple of candidates, Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg, drop out just in the last couple days. Consolidate behind Biden as they see.
In fact, there's some footage right there, the Klobuchar that you shot. She was just
here. I think they're worried. There are people that are worried that Sanders is too far left for a lot of the American electorate in a general election.
So they're going to get behind
November,
Biden for the moderates.
They want somebody who they think has a really good shot. So there's a good chance Biden could win the state here. You know, Sanders won it in 2016, but it's just a different time.
You mentioned that Sanders won in 2016. Trump, of course, won on the Republican side in 2016.
Not here, but yeah. Right.
You mentioned the numbers math-wise. Total delegates needed over 3,900, 3,979. Total delegates 1990 are needed for the nomination.
Yeah, to win the nomination. There's about 1,330 or something. Is that what you
1,357 delegates at stake, about
okay.
a third, 34%. In fact, where I'm going with this is you will be in Milwaukee at the Democratic National Convention when things are ultimately kind of decided, no matter how things develop today.
Yeah, there's always talk, and that's the Democratic Convention is in Milwaukee this year, and I think I'm going to be there for USA Today, and there's always talk in races when they're like at this point in a race about the possibility of what's called a brokered convention, which is when you get to the convention site, you get to Milwaukee, and neither of it's usually 2 candidates has enough delegates for the nomination. What happens then? There's multiple, but it never happens. I don't think it's happened since 1968, maybe on the Democratic side, but there was that talk in 2008, there are people old enough to remember the whole superdelegate thing. Remember that, where the people, like your party officials, people like David Walters here and Kendra Horn, they were going to have to decide the Obama-Hillary Clinton. Well, that didn't happen. Obama eventually. Enough people came around to Obama at the end that he got the nomination. In 2016, it looked like Sanders and Hillary Clinton might go to the convention, still fighting over a handful, but it didn't happen. So I expect that by the time the Democrats go to Milwaukee this summer that they'll have a nominee.
To clear up the muddled mess that I threw out there, total delegates at play, 3,979. Needed for the nomination is 1,990. Tonight at stake, 1,357.
About a third of the delegates available is probably a good way of putting it. There's this many delegates that are out there based, and each state has delegates. And those are divided based on how your voting history. So Oklahoma has very few, because Oklahoma
a little over 30, I believe.
37 at stake tonight. They have a total of 42, but that counts their super delegates. So anyway, a candidate needs almost 2,000 of those delegates to win the night. It's 1990 something that you need to clinch the nomination. And there's a ton of delegates. Even though these early contests got a ton of attention early this year, late last year, early this year, there were not many delegates at stake at all in Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina. So really this is a huge night for actually accumulating delegates, and it's meaningful.
And this is the guy who's been covering it for a long time, so he knows what he's talking about. He mentioned he'll be covering the Democratic National Convention in Milwaukee for USA Today. We will have live coverage from our colleagues through the Gannett Media Network from USA Today. You can watch that on Oklahoman.com. Now, if you went to the polls, saw the ballots today, there were other issues, especially in Oklahoma City. Bringing Kayla Branch now. Thanks for patiently waiting for me to muddle through my numbers there.
Very interesting.
Numbers there. Two other things. 7 counties in the state were voting if liquor stores could sell alcohol on Sundays.
Yeah, so Oklahoma as a state has been trying to modernize its liquor laws for the last several years. And most recently, and maybe the thing that most people are going to know, is that you can now buy wine and beer in grocery stores and convenience stores. And you can do that every single day of the week. And liquor stores have felt very upset about that because they are still required by law to be closed on Sundays. And the way the state legislature went about this is they said, okay, well, we're not going to attack this all at once. We're going to make every single county vote on this issue and decide what they want to do. So 77 counties in total, 7 voted today on whether or not they wanted to expand liquor store hours to include Sundays.
What would those hours be? Is that
I think it would just probably depend on what the individual store wanted to do. I did speak with some stores that said, you know, we totally support having the government kind of butt out of our business and we want to have the choice, but we're actually not going to open on Sundays, even if this does pass. And they said, you know, maybe they would have to hire extra help or just building costs for having the building open another day, delivery. And one woman said, you know, I just like not having to worry about the store one day a week. And so there are some that won't be open. There was one man who said he will open his store, but the hours are just going to depend on how busy they are. They may not stay open from 9 to 9, you know, like they do on a normal day. Exactly.
Yeah, because you're right. A lot of these liquor store owners, it's them manning it every day.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't have huge staffs.
Now, I understand that this would go into effect pretty soon, right?
Yeah, one store owner said he would immediately start opening up on Sundays.
Within a week of the voting. We mentioned one other thing is city parks. There'd be a 1/8 cent sales tax, which would go towards city parks and rec centers.
Exactly, yeah, and so they had about almost 8,000 people sign a petition to the city to get that on the ballot, and they had tried once before, but they were going to miss the deadline, weren't going to have enough people signing that petition, but so it's on the ballot this time, and it's kind of a toss-up on whether or not that one will pass. So with liquor stores, people are expecting that one to pass pretty handedly, but it's kind of unclear at this point what might happen with the parks sales tax, and there's some people who are really interested in it, and there are some people who say maybe the city doesn't have a clear enough plan with exactly what they would do with that money at this point. It'd be about $13 million a year.
Gotcha.
Kayla, do both need just a simple majority to pass?
I believe so.
There you have it. Kayla Branch and Chris Casteel providing some political and election coverage for us tonight, which you can follow all night long at Oklahoman.com, both stories, photos, and those election results. Guys, thanks so much for your time. Much appreciated.